Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at the 224 Valkyrie, the 6mm ARC, also known as the 6mm Advanced Rifle Cartridge, and the 6.5 Grendel. Now the bullet weights that we'll be comparing in those today are as follows. The 88 grain ELD match bullet for the Valkyrie, the 108 grain ELD match bullet for the 6mm ARC, and the 123 grain bullet for the 6.5 Grendel. Now all three of these rounds are designed for use in an AR-15 platform. Now you might be asking yourself this: if all three of these rounds are so amazing, how come militaries from around the world, governments from around the world, haven't been replacing the 5.56 in mass number to switch to any of these three? Well, the answer is simple. Number one, I don't know for sure. Number two, if I had to guess, I would say it has something to do with size and weight constraint. Keep this in mind. It's not uncommon for soldiers to be asked to carry about 210 rounds of 5.56 ammo. And when they do carry that ammo, they're probably using the 62 grain NATO ball ammo, if I had to guess. How much would that weigh? 210 rounds of the 62 grain NATO ball. Well, the answer is it weighs about 5 pounds 9 ounces. So in other words, if you don't want the soldiers' weight that they're carrying to exceed 5 pounds 9 ounces of ammo, how much Valkyrie could they carry? Well, the answer isn't 210 rounds, it's about 166. For the 6mm ARC, it's about 153, and for the Grendel, it's about 144. So in other words, best case scenario, if the governments choose the Valkyrie, the soldiers are down about 44 rounds from the opening bell. If we look at it another way, if after today's video you like the 6.5 Grendel and you like it more than the 6mm ARC, hey, that's fine with me, but you've got to realize that you'll be down about 9 rounds of ammo from the opening bell to walk away from the ARC and stay with the Grendel. Another way of looking at it would be this. Let's say you do like the 6mm ARC and you like it better than the Valkyrie, for example. You have to decide, do you like it so much better than the Valkyrie that you're willing to be down 13 rounds of ammo from the opening bell? You get the idea. At any rate, if you like today's video, please remember to click the like button, do subscribe, turn on the notifications icon if you haven't already done so, and we're definitely looking forward to your comments. Thanks again. Alright, for sake of reference, I figured I would put a 223 Remington 55 grain bullet right here on the left. After that, you've got the 224 Valkyrie with an 88 grain bullet on top of it. Next, you've got the 6mm ARC with a 108 grain bullet. And then you do have this 6.5 Grendel with a 123 grain bullet sitting on top of that one. If you take a close look, though, at the Grendel case and the 6mm ARC case, they are almost identical. They're identical pretty much in every way, as the Grendel case is the parent case to the ARC. But this shoulder right here has been pushed just slightly downward. I'm just guesstimating maybe like 1 millimeter downward. I don't know for sure though, but it's awfully close. Other than that, it's the identical casing to the Grendel as far as I can tell. If you were to pull the bullets off of these individual cartridges, here's what they would look like. You've got your 88 grain 224 Valkyrie bullet, your 108 grain bullet for your 6mm ARC, and your 123 grain bullet that sits on top of the 6.5 Grendel. Here are the projectiles by themselves. You've got the 88 grain bullet that sits on top of the Valkyrie, the 108 grain bullet, and your 123 grain bullet. Notice that they're almost identical in terms of length. Alright, one of the things that we'll take a look at right at the beginning is the powder charge on each of these. The Valkyrie has about 24.8 grains of powder pushing it. That's pretty much in the same neighborhood that you would find with a 223 or a 5.56. The Grendel has about 23% more than that. It's got 30.6 grains of powder pushing that 123 grain bullet. And then on your 6mm ARC, you've got about 31.0 grains of powder pushing it. So rather than having 23.3% more powder or somewhere around there, you've got about 25% more powder on your ARC 25% more than the Valkyrie, that is. So what I'm trying to say is this: before you fall in love with the numbers on any of these, you might want to consider how much heat will I be generating. And you could make a strong argument that the Valkyrie will be generating less heat, certainly in a continuous fire application. Here are your ballistic coefficients. The Valkyrie does have the better ballistic coefficient, 0.545. The second place finisher, 6mm arc at 0.536. Grendel, 0.510. In terms of your energy numbers, let me ask you to not look at that 6mm arc column for just one moment. Prior to the 6mm arc coming along, the main question that you would really wrestle with between the Grendel and the Valkyrie would be as follows. You've got more energy at any of these yard markers on your Grendel than on your Valkyrie, but by the same token, you've got more speed numbers on the Valkyrie than you do the Grendel at any of these yard markers over here, anywhere from 100 up to 1,300 yards. It's pretty much always the same. It's always more speed on the Valkyrie, always more foot-pounds of energy on the Grendel. Let's give that a try. At 500 yards, 720 foot-pounds of energy Valkyrie, 881 Grendel. But look at your speed numbers. 1920 feet per second Valkyrie, only 1796 on the Grendel. Let's try that again at 1,000 yards. 345 foot-pounds Valkyrie, 405 foot-pounds Grendel. But the speed numbers, you have the edge with the Valkyrie. 1330 feet per second Valkyrie, 1218 Grendel. You're starting to get the idea, I'm sure. But with the 6mm arc, you don't have to choose between, do I want more speed or do I want more raw energy? It has both. At every yard marker, the arc will have a little bit more speed than either of these two, and it will have more foot-pounds of energy. Let's give that a try. At 500 yards, 1970 feet per second worth of speed on your arc, compared to 1920 Grendel, 1970 on your arc compared to 1920 on your Valkyrie, 1796 Grendel. In terms of foot-pounds of energy, 931 on your arc compared to 720 Valkyrie and 881 Grendel. Let's try it again at 1200 yards, for example. 1181 feet per second on your arc compared to 1164 on your Valkyrie. Not much of a difference, but still a slight edge to the arc, and that's with a heavier bullet, keep in mind. And then only 1079 feet per second on your Grendel. In terms of this, the pure energy, 335 foot-pounds of energy to the arc, 318 Grendel, 265 on your Valkyrie. In terms of what kind of a drop will you experience on each of these, if you have a 200-yard zero, the column right here is for your arc. You'll notice that the arc always will drop less than either the Valkyrie or the Grendel. The Valkyrie will be your second place finisher, Grendel third place finisher. In terms of wind drift, the column right here in the middle is the arc. And then on the left, you've got your Valkyrie on the left, and on your far right, you've got your Grendel. So you've got Valkyrie, arc, Grendel, moving left to right. The column in the middle, no matter which numbers you look at, they will always be smaller. So you'll have a smaller wind drift number than the Valkyrie or the Grendel as well, if you're going with the arc. But rather than trying to memorize some boring or tedious chart with wind drift, let's see if there's an easier way to think about this. Alright, in this column here we've got the arc as it compares to the Valkyrie, and here we have the arc as it compares to the 6.5 Grendel. This is with your drop and your wind. At 300 yards, how's the arc and Valkyrie comparing to each other? 5.7% less drop in favor of the arc, 2.14% less wind drift in favor of the arc. At 500 yards, it's pretty much more the same. 5.5% less drop for the arc, 2.23% less wind drift. Now keep in mind you do have a little bit better ballistic coefficient on the Valkyrie than you do the arc. It starts to pay dividends for you a little bit at 1,000 yards. But you are still trailing the arc, but not by as much. You've got 5.1% less drop for the arc, 1.85% less wind drift. And then out there at 1,200 yards, 4.9% less drop in favor of the arc, 1.5% less wind drift. And the reason that I selected 1,200 yards is if you take a look at the speed numbers out there at 1,200, they're both still above the speed of sound. But the 1,200 yard marker is about the last yard marker where you can be pretty confident that they are both still above the speed of sound. When you take a look at the arc as it compares to the 6.5 Grendel, 300 yards, how they doing? Much bigger difference than arc to Valkyrie. It's 14.5% less drop for the arc, 13.8% less wind drift. 500 yards, pretty much more the same, 14.9, let's just call that 15% less drop for the arc, 14.4% less wind drift. It gets even more impressive when you hit the 1,000 yard marker, 16.75% less drop for the arc, 14.75% less wind drift. And then at 1,100 yards, which is your last yard marker where you can be pretty confident that that Grendel is still above the speed of sound, 17% less drop for the arc, 14.43% less wind drift for the arc.